market for some good, and you have a demand for that good, and a supply of that good, and a price of this good, and a quantity sold of the good. And in every single market that we look at, then we assume that the market is in equilibrium, so they go to this price here would be your equilibrium price, and this quantity here will be the equilibrium quantity. So in a free market type system, you're going to end up with prices being set by the interaction of the buyer and the seller. So they join together, and when they join together, they kind of, not necessarily a formal process, but they end up with a price that works and a quantity that works. Okay, so they may start high and go low, and then they start low and go high, but they end up at this interaction ends up with this equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Okay, so there's only 4 things that can happen from there. We can have the demand shift to the right, and if the demand shifts to the right, that means we would end up at this line here. Like we have a new line right there. It's a mini demand curve, but it kind of does point. So we go from this equilibrium to this equilibrium, so that when you compare this equilibrium to this equilibrium, we have a higher price and a higher quantity. So prices go up and quantity goes up. And the other shift that can occur is we have the demand curve shifting to the left, and that would kind of bring us down here. So we'd say that's like the double prime. And when we compare this equilibrium to this equilibrium, we're at a lower price and a lower quantity. So that would be, we'll call it price quantity. And then the other shift could be supply shifting to the right, which would be an increase in supply. And if that occurs, comparing this equilibrium to this equilibrium, we'd have a lower price and a greater quantity. So when supply goes up, the price is going to go down, and the quantity is going to go up. And then finally, the last one is the supply curve shifting to the left. And when that happens, the prices go up and the quantities sold go down. All right, so that's where we left off. All right, but there's times where it doesn't really, where it's not simple and there's more than one thing changing. And when that happens, those are called double shifts. So a double shift is when two things change, when two different things change at the same time. So just to give you an example, let's look at something like advertising. Right? Advertising would be an example of a double shift. And what happens with advertising, real simply, is what's the point of advertising? To do what? Get more people to buy your product. And so based on our single shifts, what do you expect? What's the objective of advertising in terms of those single shifts? Or which one of those to change? Demand to go to the which right? To the right. Okay, so the first one is we would expect advertising for the demand to go up, right? Because that's the whole point of advertising. You want people to buy your product, so that makes sense, okay? And what about, but advertising costs money, right? And so the number $4.5 million for 30 seconds at the Super Bowl. So advertising always costs money, and if there's an increase in cost, then what will happen over there? Which one of the shifts will change? Which one of the shifts will shift?
Supply to the left.
Supply will shift to the left. So we have 2 shifts. We have supply going down, and we have demand going up. So the question is, well, what happens to the prices and the quantities as a result of those 2 shifts? Because that's always the question, right? What's the result with what's prices? How will prices change, and how will quantities change? That's what we're always asking. So that's the same thing here. So what happens to price and quantity? Well, we know if there's a demand increase, the prices will go up and quantity will go up. We know if there's a supply decrease, the way I kind of memorize it or do it really fast, demand, they both go in the same directions. Supply, the quantity will always go the same direction as my arrow, and price goes the opposite. Or I can just look over that and memorize it. So what is the net result of these advertising, these shifts in the demand curve and the supply curve? So the net result is, well, prices are going to go up here with a demand increase, and prices are going to go up here with a supply decrease. So we know prices are going to go up. How do I know that? Because there's upward pressure on demand, there's downward pressure on supply. Both of those would indicate higher prices, so that would mean prices go up. What about the quantity? Yes? Right, and in this case, so the answer is, it depends on which one shifts by more, but do we know in this example here which one shifts by more? No, so we're just going to say, we don't know, that's uncertain. So what we do know is that prices are going to go up. What we don't know is if the companies can sell more as a result of their advertising. Why don't we know it? Because the costs are going up, prices are going up. So how we don't know for sure if they're going to be able to sell more at the higher prices. So that's an example of a double shift. But let me give you some others. Okay, some real life examples. For instance, so let's take a look at some markets, let's say like laptops. In the market for laptop computers, we're going to span some time here. So let's just for our purposes, okay, let's go back like 10 years. Okay, think about your house 10 years ago. All right, and can you remember how many laptops you had in your house 10 years ago? Just let's say that how many of you guys might have like one laptop? Okay, if you have more, wait. Okay, so one laptop, raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, and how many of you guys had like 2 laptops in your house 10 years ago? Okay, 1. Right? How many had 3? Okay, 1. Anyone else? Okay. And how about any more than 3? Okay, so most of you guys didn't have any. Okay, so that means that as a class, we had about 20 laptops, and that would be like, we'll just say, I'll stick with my data, we'll just say in 2005, right? So in 2005, the quantity was 20. Sorry, we'll go years here. The quantity here. So in 2005, the quantity was 20. And about the price, what about the price of laptops? And that year, they were probably, what do you think they were for prices? The average price of a laptop during that period was $1,081. That was the price of laptops. Okay, and as a class, we bought 20 of them. Okay, so let's just make that our starting point. That would be our supply curve, and this would be our demand curve. And in real life, in the market for laptops in 2005, there were 66 million sold. 66.3 million. So that was our worldwide. So we'll kind of follow along with that. Now, fast forward. All right, how many laptops do you guys have right now? Let's say, how many of you guys have one in your house? Count here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and you can count tablets. Right? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. How many have 2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's 12. How many have 3? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 24. Anybody have 4? 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, All right, I think nobody has 6. It is 6.
My parents have like a personal, like one for work, and then like me and my siblings.
So 6. So anybody have? Do you have 6 also? Okay. So 2 people have 6. Any more? All right. Okay, good. So then that one, I think my house I think we're at like 6 or something too. But okay. So now if we add all those up, if I can, 18, 22, 42, 82, 107, 117, 119. Oh, if you look at what's changed now, we're way out here as a class at 119. And the price of laptops right now are, on average, the price of a laptop are $531. So look what happened is we moved from this equilibrium out to this equilibrium. And that's the problem is you can't just look at one thing changing because more than one thing changed, right? So what happened in this market? Somehow we got all the way over here to this new equilibrium. And worldwide we're at 317 million laptops were sold last year. So that's kind of gives us an idea. So this is 2014, right? So we have, so you can see our class is a good representation of what's happening in the whole world, right? Our class went from 20 to 119. The world went from 66 million to 317 million, and the price went down almost, well, more than half. And so what happened? Well, we had a shift of the supply curve, right, all the way over to here, and then we had a shift of the demand curve all the way over here. So we had a double shift. In this case, the demand went up and the supply went up. And which one went up by more? Can you tell? Well, look at the end result of this was what? Prices went up. What was the end result? Let's kind of look at what ended up happening. What happened to prices? They went down. And what happened to quantity sold? It went up. So which one does this look like? What one changed? So go back to your single shift. Where prices go down and the quantity sold goes up, what does that look like? Supply shifting which way? To the right. So that means that what happened is they both changed, right? We know that. But the supply dominated, and the way I know that is because the market has taken on the characteristics of the supply curve shifting to the right. And you could draw the picture of that too. You could just draw it like we did, where you have this big, it looks like a big shift in both, but definitely supply shifted by more. Okay? Yes?
Is it ever okay to go off of the difference between the numbers, or should we go off of that?
You can look at the numbers too. If the price went down, you already know the answer. Yeah. Yep. So you can do it by the picture, you can do it by the numbers, the information that's given to you. But the bottom line here is we know that these things have happened, right? There's more of a demand for laptops, and there's certainly more of I because the prices, because there's more companies that make them now, and if you look at laptop prices, I was looking at those, and it was, it was Dell, it was, was one, and like Acer was one, and all these companies like Lenovo, they weren't even talking about like Apple and Microsoft Surfaces. There's so many companies that make them. I would have thought they'd have Apple first, Microsoft second, because those are the biggest companies, but there's a lot of makers. So supply is going up, plus it's cheaper to make them. Cost of production is going down, so that pushes the supply curve to the right. So all these things have occurred here, and then the demand has gone up because you can't make it without a laptop, right? You can't make it through college even anymore without having a laptop. Most people have them. I'm not saying you can't, but it's hard to. Okay, and the last market to look at this, I'll just run over this one quickly, and this is the market for coffee, right? So what do you think's happening in the market for coffee? So I've got some statistics on this. In 1994, a tall at Starbucks was $1.25. How much is it now?
Like 3 cents.
How much is it for tall? Anybody know? Any like Starbucks, like tall drinkers here?
Like $3 to $4.
$3 to $4? Okay. So let's just say $4, okay? And so the price obviously has gone up, right? And listen to the number of bags of coffee sold went from 94 million bags a year worldwide to 145 million bags. So what that calculates out to is that the world now drinks 2.25 billion cups of coffee per day. 2.2. So we have a lot of coffee drinkers, and that wasn't the case. You know, when I was growing up, the only people who drank coffee were old people. You know, if you drank coffee, it was when you Saturday morning, you sat around your table with other old people, and you talked about how bad your kids were, and that was like, you know, that's when they drink their coffee. And now it's like, you know, you guys are like, I gotta get my Starbucks, right? And it's like the cool thing to do, because even if you just hold an empty Starbucks cup, it's still cool, right? So that's the new thing. So there's definitely an increase in demand, and there's definitely an increase in the number of coffee sellers, right? When I moved to Rock Hill, we have one place in town called Durango's, which is now Michael's restaurant, and that was the only place that was like a coffee shop. Now, you know, there's Dunkin' Donuts, there's Starbucks, there's the Mick Cafe, you know, there's, that's McDonald's. It's coming on there yet. And you should have known by the Mick, right? And then there's all these other places like Java City and whatever, you know, there's so many different coffee shops. So we know demand has gone up, right? And we know the supply has also gone up. But what ended up happening to the prices? In this case, right, so I'm putting the same arrows in as I did up there, okay, because it's the same market, sorry. Yeah, that's right. Right, but what was the end result in this one with prices? Price of coffee has done what? For a cup of coffee, prices have done what? Up, and what about the quantity sold? Yeah. So what does that take on the characteristics of? The demand curve. So demand and supply have both shifted, but clearly the demand curve has shifted by more than the supply curve. The way we know that is that the market is taking on the characteristics of just the demand shift. Does that make sense? All right, so we have these double shifts, and I'm going to give you like a little quiz on these, and this is going to be your extra credit, and I'll give them to you, and I'll give them to you right here in the class, so you can just turn them in and head out. But there's 3 questions, and they're just double shift questions. That's all. So if you get one right, 1 out of 3, that adds 1 point to your test grade. If you get all 3 right, then it adds 3 points to your test grade. Got it? So but it's no like half credit on a multiple choice question. Sorry, you're either right or wrong. Yes?
That's still the new equilibrium? That's still like static equilibrium?
It's still static. Yeah, we're still jumping from one point to the other. Now, and then over time, over time, again, we don't know how we got there, but we're just saying we went from this point to this point, and that's it. And you're going to get information like the demand curve shifted to the right, or the supply curve shifted to the left, or something like that. And then the best way to do it, to solve the problems, is just put the arrows up, and then look, and if they're going in opposite directions, right, like here, they're going in opposite directions, then it's uncertain. If they go in the same directions, then you know. The only way you'll know for sure if it's, both of them is going to be if I say demand shifts by more than the supply, or supply shifts by more than the demand, or I say the end result is this. So if I just say you get 2 shifts and then you're going to have one of them is going to be uncertain, you have to have a little bit more information. Okay, so demand shifts to the right, supply shifts to the right, but demand shifts by more than the supply, then it would end up being like that. Okay, hopefully that's good, and hopefully you understand that, and you're ready on that. Okay, so the next thing is, I would like to begin this whole concept of elasticity. So like I said, next class is going to be bring your calculators in, and we're going to be going over some stuff, but today it's just like an introduction, and just want to talk a little bit about what it is. Right? But what happens in what we've done so far is we've had this equation, right? And maybe you don't know we've got this equation, but we've got this equation. Where what we're looking at here is the quantity demanded, correct? Right, so the QX would just represent the quantity demanded of some good or service. And we've said that that quantity demanded, like this here, is going to be determined by, or as a function of, the price of that good. Right, that's why we have it up here on this axis. And we also said some other factors would impact the quantity demanded or the demand. Okay, so we're just now, all I'm looking at right now is the elasticity, and I'm looking at it from the demand side. Although it's also relevant to look at it on the supply side, we're just going to focus on the demand side for elasticity. So the big question is, what causes this quantity, this Q, to change? What causes that to change? And we said number one is the price of it. That makes sense, and it should be like a negative relationship, right? Because when the price of this goes up, the quantity demanded of this goes down, or when the price of this goes down, the quantity demanded of that goes up, so there's a negative relationship. And that's also shown by this demand curve, the shape of the demand curve, right? So we have prices here, and price, I'll call that high, and then prices are low. And the quantity is, we'll call it, this is QH, and this is QL, right? So this would be, so what happens is when the price is high, we have this Q, when the price is low, we have this Q. So obviously the quantity is going that way, okay? So there we have this negative or inverse relationship between the two. So we're moving along the demand curve, yeah.
I don't know if you might confuse anybody, but I think they.
Want me to call this like a price 1 and 2?
I think,
That'd be better.
Isn't the quantity of the last one
This would be price 1 and that's 2. Okay. Is that better? That way I don't have high and low. Okay. So this, for the original price would be, oops, sorry, 1 and 2. Okay. So what happens is when the price is low, we're all the way out here with this quantity. Say it's 100. And when the price is high, we're at this quantity, let's say it's 50. Okay? So these are associated with the different prices. But the big question is going to be like, how sensitive is the quantity to the demand? All right? How sensitive is this amount here to a change in price? So let's look at something. What if you had a demand curve that looked like this? And we have a product that when we'll put a price, let's say the price is $1, and it goes up to $10. And when the price goes from $1 to $10, the quantity demanded goes from 9 to 10.
The price doesn't really matter.
Yeah, in this case, you would say that the price doesn't really matter, does it? You can charge pretty much whatever you want, and people are still going to buy it. So in this case, you would say that the quantity is very insensitive to the price changes. When the price goes up by a lot, the quantity demanded only changes by a little. So that's insensitive, and another word for that would be inelastic. Okay, so insensitivity and elasticity are very much the same thing. So when you hear the word elasticity, what they're really talking about is how sensitive it is. So in this case, we have an item that when you raise the price by a lot, people basically still buy it, almost as much as they used to buy it. So what would be an example of that? Gas is a good example in the short run. Coffee, because you're addicted to it, obviously, right? Okay. Cigarettes are a really good example. They basically have done that with cigarettes, where they've raised, you know what an average price for a pack of cigarettes is in like New Jersey? It's like $12 a pound. So you gotta really like smoking when they do that. When they raise the prices that much, then you're still buying it. That means it's very inelastic, or very price insensitive, right? It doesn't matter what they charge, you're still gonna buy it, yes.
What about normal goods in general?
Normal goods wouldn't be like that in general. You know, they wouldn't be that sensitive. You know, you would substitute away, or you find something else that you could buy, but you can't substitute, well, you can probably substitute away from cigarettes coming in. But probably that's not a good thing. But I'm not sure that's a good thing to substitute away. Maybe like the little, whatever, electric ones, or but the point is, what if you had some disease and they said, hey, if you want to live, you have to buy this medicine, and then they raise the price of that medicine from $1 to $10 a pill. Then what do you do? You buy the medicine, right? And there's no ways around it. If you don't buy it, you don't live. So this would be an example of an inelastic demand. Okay, so when the prices change, we don't get a big change in quantity. And then this one here, what if we had a demand curve that looked more like that? And prices here, and quantities are here. So now we're going to change the price from, let's say, $2 down to, when the price goes to $1.90 to $2, the quantity demanded changes by, let's say it goes from 1 to 100. Okay, so now we have this little change in the price results in this huge change in the quantity. So that would be considered elastic or very sensitive. In other words, if they raise the price by a little bit, they lose all those customers. So you can lose 99 customers if you raise the price by 10 cents. Okay, so that would be very price sensitive or price elastic. See how I'm using the terminology? So when you hear the word elastic, it just means like sensitivity. In this case, what type of good would be that price sensitive?
Something you can substitute.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that you can substitute away from. Because as soon as the price goes up, you go, I'm not going to buy it anymore. Is there anything like that you think, maybe not this sensitive, but is there anything like it if you think, hey, if they raise the prices, I'm not going to go there anymore? Coke and Pepsi could be good. Or anything else that you can think of that if they raise the price by a little bit, you're going to just go buy it somewhere else. Find somewhere else to buy it.
Fast food.
Yeah, fast food, they raise it, you just go somewhere else, right? And so, are there any places where they've raised the price by a little bit and you don't go there anymore? Yeah. Netflix. Okay, yeah, Netflix had a huge problem for a while. They raised their prices. Their stock actually absolutely tumbled, and then they kind of readjusted and lowered the prices again. But they people were more price sensitive to Netflix than Netflix thought. So they had to you look back on their stock history. It was like 3 years ago. Stock was like cruising along at like $300 a share, and then it dropped almost down to like 100 in a couple days. And then now it's recovered back. It's like 400 something, but very, very price sensitive. Anything else? So what will you do if they raise the price of Netflix? What do you do? Just stop buying it? Because you consider it maybe a luxury or something? Okay. Anything else? Nothing else. You've never walked away from a place because they've raised the prices.
Different brands of chips.
Yeah?
As far as like Lay's and like the cheaper brands.
Yeah, sometimes when they have Lay's, it's like, if they don't have deals on chips, they're expensive. Like Tostitos and stuff like that, they don't have deals on them. You're like $4 for a bag, Just,
For a bag of air.
yeah, for a bag that has very little in it. I'm ridiculously price sensitive. Like I used to go to Five Guys a lot, and Five Guys has gotten to the point where it's like $11 for a drink, a hamburger, and fries. It's like $11 on your Five Guys. But that's how I look at it. I'm like, I'm not going to go there anymore. It's like I'm not being negative or whatever, but I guess I am. But, you know, that's just me being price, I'm very price sensitive. So I go to places, I notice when they raise prices in places. Right? Zaxby's just raised the prices by like 30 cents or something. I pay attention to that. So so if that's the case, because you know you can go somewhere else, then that's called being very elastic. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna spend time looking at this factor here, the first factor that we're gonna look at, and how it impacts the quantity is gonna be called the arc price elasticity. So so the way we do it is we change the price and we see what happens to the quantity. That's called arc price elasticity. And then we're gonna look at income elasticity. And income elasticity is just, you change the income, you hold the price constant, you change the income, and you see how that impacts the demand. And then we're going to do this other one called the cross price elasticity, which is PY. I'll go over these next class. They're also in your notes. And the PY would be changing the price of another good and seeing how that impacts the quantity. And we'll even maybe do the last one, which is advertising. And we'll change advertising and see how that impacts the demand. And so all of these factors we've already gone over before. This is the price of X, we talked about before. This is income. Remember with income we had luxuries, necessities, and normal goods, right? Luxuries and necessities and inferior goods. And then this is the price of related goods. We had complements and substitutes in here. And this is the taste and preferences. So we've gone over all of these different factors of demand. And so now we're just going to put a number value to them. Now we're going to say, if income changes, what happens to demand? It goes up. Now we're going to say, by how much? And if the price of Coke goes up, that changes the demand for Pepsi. Now we're going to answer the question of, by how much? Are they weak substitutes, or are they strong substitutes? And that's what, so all the next part is all based on numeric values. And so you're just going to solve for these numbers, and hopefully this gives you an idea of what we're doing. So I want to set this up because when you're in the middle of elasticity, all you're doing is numbers. I want you to understand what you're doing, you know, what the numbers are for. Okay? So here's a little mini extra credit. If you don't want to do it, you can leave. You don't have to do it. It's optional.